Hey indie game fans, the roguelite/roguelike genre is one which is very popular due to the near infinite amount of replayability due to the features of permadeath and procedural generation, with the occasional progression system thrown in. The Nintendo Switch is the perfect console for this due to the run-based gameplay structure, so here are the top 10 best roguelike/roguelite indie games on the Nintendo Switch. Dead Cells is a self-titled Roguelvania, or roguelite Metroidvania, combining two of my favorite genres, with the action platforming of something like a Castlevania game with permadeath and procedural generation. What I really like about this game is how it controls, since attacking, jumping, rolling, and even the butt stomp all feel so good to execute. It is responsive and tight, with some clever behind-the-scenes developer tweaks that make the game feel as good as it does. A ton of upgrades and weapons gives you that much needed variety, and you always feel like you are making progress in this game, slowly chipping away at the upgrades by putting the cells that you get from each run into the upgrades. Developer Motion Twin has continued to support the game with both content patches and free DLC, such as the Rise of the Giants pack earlier this year, and most recently in August, the Who's the Boss update, so super consumer friendly and highly recommended. The Binding of Isaac, one of the all-time classic roguelites going all the way back to 2011, made by the now legendary game developer Edmund Macmillan. Afterbirth Plus follows Rebirth and Afterbirth, and it, to date, is the most complete version of the game that just so happens to be on the Nintendo Switch. Originally inspired by The Legend of Zelda and the developer's childhood upbringing and his experience with the Christian faith, play as Isaac, having to avoid but ultimately defeat his mother, who is compelled by a voice from above who wants her to sacrifice her son. It is very dark and grotesque, but at the same time, it's a very cleverly designed game with secret rooms and many mechanics, which also have a way of stacking with each other. While I wouldn't call myself the biggest fan in the world of this game, definitely worth checking out. There are Let's Plays of this game on YouTube with the episode number running into the thousands, so how's that for replayability? The roguelite deck builder, Slay the Spire, reached 1.0 this year after a period of early access on Steam, and the console launches occurred in the following months. Journey up the ever-changing Spire to get to the heart of the matter on what is causing these monsters to spawn. While the narrative isn't its strong suit, the deck building aspect is excellent, featuring 3 main and 1 more new character in the works, all of which play very differently. Similar to Into the Breach, information is not hidden, so the next move that your enemy makes shows up above their head, allowing you to plan, prioritize, and optimize your actions for the best outcome. Sounds simple in concept, but giving the player agency in cases like this feels great. There is a large variety of well-balanced cards, the ability to upgrade, purchase, or discard cards, FTL-style node-based exploration and random events, and even relics, which are in-run items that give you bonuses which tend to stack and synergize in many fun ways, possibly giving you that overpowered combination that feels great to obtain in roguelites. GoNNer is a roguelite platformer that certainly has a look to it. This does what many roguelites do, but in an especially clever way, and that is the sense of mystery and discovery about game mechanics. On the surface, GoNNer does not tell you all that much in terms of explanation or any text really, and you are just a headless body but can equip different heads, weapons and special items. Central to this are glyphs, the purple icons appearing in the top left, which are the main currency. These enable you to purchase upgrades and most importantly, continues, which differs from roguelite tradition. There is a combo system in place that encourages you to kill all enemies as quickly as possible, which of course involves the liberal use of guns, since ammo, thankfully, is plentiful as well. The hand-drawn art is charming, so this is one of the quirkier and more unique roguelites out there. Tangledeep is a roguelike with a very modern and pretty skin over it, much nicer visually than your rogues and dungeon crawl stone soups of the world, with a 16-bit art style and multiple character classes, which is the aspect which I really like. Always a fan of adding more variety and gameplay styles to games, and with 12 classes here, plenty to go around. Explore the lush labyrinth of Tangledeep with a surprisingly compelling main narrative and variety in the biomes. There is a central hub area with upgrades, townspeople to help, and even a pet system where you can raise enemies as allies. While this does have permadeath, it is also more accessible in that there is an adventure mode option that allows you to turn permadeath off, so much more accessible to newcomers, turning this into more of a traditional RPG experience. The original Risk of Rain is a roguelite platformer using my favorite pixel art and has 12 unique unlockable characters, each having a special ability and playing quite differently. As with Dead Cells, what I really like about this game is how it feels to control, which is excellent, from lining up the shots to the platforming and exploration. One of the more interesting design concepts that developer Hoopoe Games had for this game is time equals difficulty, so while you can spend loads of time exploring the entire level for upgrades, the difficulty and the number of enemy spawns gradually ramps up. Each level also ends in a crescendo event where you have to fight off waves of enemies and try to survive a countdown. As with all great roguelites, there are relic equivalents or simply items in this game which synergize and play off each other, amplifying how powerful you feel until you run into that one tough enemy or boss. Co-op is an option as well, which is also chaotic fun, but a supremely well-designed title overall. As a side note, the sequel, Risk of Rain 2, made the jump to 3D, which is super weird but cool that they managed to pull it off, and in a rare move, Nintendo has also allowed this early access title on their storefront as well, so perhaps check out the sequel after playing this game. Crypt of the Necrodancer combines a traditional turn-based dungeon crawling roguelike with essentially a rhythm game where you have to move your character to the beat. The soundtrack, of course, is one of the key highlights, but the pixel art sprites, variety in weapons and enemy behavior are excellent as well. One important aspect of roguelites is the boss design, and this game knocks it out of the park, with musically themed ones, such as King Konga being a conga playing gorilla who has a literal conga line of zombies in the level. Some of you may be a little familiar with this due to the excellent Cadence of Hyrule, which is basically Zelda-themed Crypt of the Necrodancer, but a little more forgiving, so to get the authentic rhythm roguelite experience, check this one out. Enter the Gungeon is a top-down roguelite bullet hell shooter that plays similarly to other titles in the genre, but was made as if the developer simply wanted to see how many gun puns they could come up with. At the last count, there are 243 guns in this game, from your more traditional shotguns and assault rifles to more exotic ones like a beehive that shoots bees and even a gun that shoots other guns. The cult of the Gundead are your most common foe, which are these super adorable bullet-shaped enemies that are essentially the mascots for this game. As with Necrodancer, the boss designs are fantastic, filled with gun puns such as the Ammo Conda, the MINE Flayer, a pun on the MIND Flayer from D&D, as well as the Gore Gun and the Beholster. The crossing of streams of traditional Dungeons & Dragons and gun-based design is very clever, but perhaps that is due to me really liking puns in general. Developer Dodge Roll did continue to support it with many free DLC packs, adding more areas, content, enemies, and guns, but as of 2019, it appears that they are satisfied with the product, so this is as good a time as any to jump in.
Explore the island of Yulu with Quill and his companion Koji. Available now on Nintendo eShop.
Eagle Island is a falconry-focused roguelite that feels great to play. Throw your owl companion at enemies as you obtain the power of the elemental feathers on your journey to face off against the guardian eagle Amora. This is all about the combos, rewarding you for chaining attacks, and the enemy and especially boss designs are very impressive indeed. And of course, this uses my favorite pixel art. The gameplay structure is a little weird in that this is not a pure roguelite per se, but has an adventure mode more focused on the story with procedurally generated dungeons, but awesome action nonetheless.
On Eagle Island.
The next game is from the developer of FTL Faster Than Light, and is a roguelite turn-based tactics game that essentially pits giant mechs versus kaiju Pacific Rim style. In Into the Breach, play as a team of 3 mechs sent to stop the alien Vec invasion and the destruction of the world. The most interesting part of this game is that it is a tactics game where all enemy moves and turn order are shown on screen, as compared to the random dice rolls and targets in games like XCOM. So right off the bat, you have so much more information. You can push enemies, causing them to attack each other, push non-flying enemies into the water for an instant kill, and even stand on the spawning areas to prevent enemies from emerging from the ground. Most important of all is to protect the power grid, which is your life meter, but there are optional objectives, upgrades for your mech, and new mechs to unlock with special abilities. I regard this as one of the all-time best strategy games that happens to have a procedural element to it, and of course, being turn-based, this is an excellent fit for the Switch. For more of the best indie games, do check out the previous video or click on the recommended playlist, and I will see you after the jump.